Hi, Angelica. Welcome to the Cosmic Artist podcast. It is so nice to have you here. I'm so excited to learn more about your story. But before anything, I would love if you could share with us um, about you and your favorite things in the world.
Ooh, my favorite things in the world. Well, I am Angelica, like you said. I am an herbalist. I am an earth steward. That's definitely like one of my favorite things in the world is connecting with the earth and the plants and the animals and the humans that are
Mhm,
all over this beautiful planet. And I, like, in that same vein, love to travel. I love to go to different countries or different areas and meet different types of people and experience different types of cultures and foods and hear different types of languages. My brain really likes that and thrives off of that. And I think that it just reminds me of like how rich and beautiful and diverse this world is, but also how similar we all are as well, right? It's like you can travel across the world and see someone laugh and smile, and you know what's happening with them, whether or
mhm,
not you can
mhm.
speak the same language as them. So, yeah, those are some of my favorite things. And what else about me? I'm a writer, I'm an author. I just published my first book, Womb Witch. And
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. It's been really exciting and wild. I know that you know, in publishing your own book as well, it's quite the process, but it's very exhilarating and amazing. And I guess lastly, I love the esoteric arts. I love deep diving into like a psycho-spiritual space and really exploring the human condition through that lens. So, yeah.
Ooh, yummy. Okay. Did you say deep arts?
Deep arts, esoteric arts. But yeah, I guess tomato,
Es-
tomato.
Esoteric arts. My brain was just like deep. Yes, love
Yeah,
deep.
yes.
What can you share more about the esoteric arts that you enjoy?
Yeah, so oh gosh. Uh I love like Jungian psychology. I love dream work. I am a practicing pagan, so I follow the wheel of the year. Those are my main holidays are, going through like the solstices and the
Mhm.
equinoxes and then the midway points. And what else? Let's see. There's so much that I explore. I feel like I find one little thread and then I keep following it. And right now I'm deep diving into alchemy, and I have been really interested in the alchemical process for like the past 10 years, but I am like starting to read a little bit more deeper books into it because I think the alchemical process is so interesting to learn about in like each step, because then it's a way that you can like take it and see how you can apply it directly to your life and your life experiences. And for me personally, like bringing my book to life was very much an alchemical process. And I believe that if we have something like deep within us that needs to be expressed, for me, I like to express through like art, either writing or dancing or sewing sometimes or dyeing fabrics. And I find that writing is like my most potent alchemical process. And so I want to continue that process to continue to write books. And so I just feel like learning about alchemy more will help me do that in like an even more effective way. So,
Oof. Yes, yes. I love that. I feel like alchemy has been a word in the ethers a lot more recently. And I
mhm.
don't think it's a surprise that it coincides with like Neptune moving into Aries and all the big planetary
Yes.
shifts that we currently have going on. And it's becoming like it's just calling out to us more and more like how can you alchemize, how can you alchemize? And
Yes.
I feel so deeply, and emotions to me are the biggest things that we're meant to alchemize. And so I think it's so powerful when so many more of us are tapping into alchemy, understanding how can we alchemize our emotions into things like books and art and dance and like you said, like dyeing fabric. It's something that you wouldn't even think that you can alchemize into, but you can, like we can. We're we're magicians. It's incredible.
It is absolutely 100%. Yeah, I mean, even when I'm baking, I'm a baker and I love to make like healthy, wild food infused baked goods. And like I feel like anytime I bring something that I've like found in the woods or like, the edge of the forest and I'm infusing it into this baked good, I'm like, oh, that just it does. It feels like magic. And then I feel like anyone who then eats it gets to experience that magic that like has been fused from like all the different ingredients and the intention that you put inside of it.
Absolutely. Like I'm just thinking about our hands and how our hands like this is these are profound tools for magic and
Mhm.
whatever we're feeling and whatever we're thinking, like we're passing it on through our hands. So I love that you brought in baking because I also think often how I don't really want to cook when I'm feeling sad or bad or like just not in the right
Right?
mood because we're transferring that into the food and then we're eating that food.
Yep,
And it just feels
100%.
it just feels like counterproductive rather than being like, okay, I understand. I don't feel like cooking right now. I'm going to give myself space. Maybe I'll order some food. Maybe I'll do something else that doesn't involve, or maybe I'll get myself feeling better before I make the food, right?
Yep,
Like
absolutely.
intentionality, it's everything, isn't it?
It is. It really is everything. It changes the way that you like perceive and move through the world. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I'm curious to know if you know your sun, moon, and rising.
Yes, so I am a Virgo sun, Virgo moon, and a Scorpio rising.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
love that.
Uh-huh.
That makes a lot of sense based on what I know of you and your work, and especially the
Yeah.
fact that you brought in alchemy. That's such a Scorpio like tool of magic.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. Yeah,
So
it's
I
fun.
know your book is about womb work. I'm curious to know how, and I know it's way more than that, of course, and I cannot wait for you to go into that a little bit later. But I'm curious to know how you got interested in womb work and what was your into um, just everything that you're practicing right now.
Yeah. Well, I would say like the real inception moment was when I realized that I didn't need to be on birth control pills and that they were causing a lot of disturbances in my life and my mental health and also physically as well, like just adding a lot of inflammation to my body. And, I am not the type of person to say that birth control isn't for anyone because I just don't live in absolutes like that. But I think
Mhm.
that uh, a lot of people are very unaware of the implications of taking birth control pills long term and what could potentially be happening to your body with the use of them. And for me, it did not work very well. And once I figured out that it was the root cause of a lot of issues for me, it was very like a mind blowing open moment because then I learned that there were ways that my body was communicating to me, like when I was fertile, when I was not, like how long my cycle was telling me, well, I was able to see like, oh, maybe, I'm not having enough of this hormone or I have too much of this hormone and like ways that I could contour my lifestyle, like the food that I was eating, the stress that I was dealing with, all of the different things in my life to find more balance within my menstrual cycle. And so I guess that was like the real moment that I was like, oh my God, there's like fluid that comes out of our cervix that tells us when we're fertile. Like I was just like, wait, that's not like a bad thing. That's not something we need to get rid of because I was never taught that that was something that was normal. And then when I found that out, I was like, what else is a lie? Like I need
Mm,
to find out like what else is going on in my body?
yes.
Like what else is going out in the world? Like it was yeah, a really profound shift for me in that
Mhm.
moment. And then I also experienced an ectopic pregnancy, and I did not know at the time what an ectopic pregnancy was. Because I had been tracking my cycles for so long, I
Sorry,
did
what is it?
okay, so an ectopic pregnancy, and this is great. I'm glad you're asking this because, it's like I would say like the real reason why I wrote the book is because I was like so in disbelief that I didn't know what it was and that many people in my life don't know what it is.
Mm,
And even people who are beyond their years of reproductive ability, like grandmothers and grandparents, like they don't know what an ectopic pregnancy is. And it's when the embryo implants outside of the uterus and it's not viable. It needs to either like be removed through medication or a surgery, or else it'll be fatal.
mm,
It can cause like internal bleeding, the rupture of the fallopian tube, just really depending on where it implants. And for myself, it had um, started internal bleeding, but I mistook it for getting my period. So I was
mm,
bleeding and I was in like a horrific amount of pain, but I had never had like period cramps before, menstrual cramps. So I was just like, oh, maybe this is what everyone's talking about for having cramps. And I was like, God, this is horrific. How is anyone like living life with this?
yeah.
But little did I know I was just pregnant and I had literally like had something like rupturing inside of me and causing me to
Mm,
internally bleed.
yeah.
So when that happened, I was living abroad and it was a not very fun experience and very traumatic. And I just went on a path of like learning about my body more and then receiving trainings to know how to support other people through pregnancy
Mm,
loss or pregnancy release. I became more interested in doing like postpartum doula work, which I never was officially trained as a postpartum doula, but I have like the clinical skills as an herbalist and have a lot of training in functional nutrition as well. So I do more like of a herbal and nutritional postpartum care in the work that I've done in the past. So
mm.
yeah,
So learning about this pregnancy is what do you call it? Atropic?
ectopic.
Ectopic?
Yep. Yeah.
So learning about the ectopic pregnancy is what got you deeper down this womb path.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, because it literally, I mean, it like forced me to be like I was in touch with my womb space, but like in a whole new way because I experienced chronic pain like 2 years for 2 years after that experience. I
Mm.
was like unable to work full time and was just like in debilitating pain. And so, yeah, I kind of like took the pain that I experienced for that amount of time, and then also the distaste for the US government overturning the reproductive rights.
Mhm.
Uh, so those two things in tandem, I was like, okay, I'm gonna write this book. And it
Yeah.
just flew out of my hands type deal. So
Wow.
yeah.
First of all, I'm sending you so much love. That is huge. And thank you for sharing that. I can
Yeah,
imagine
absolutely.
the kind of trauma, the kind of mind games that could play, the kind of body games that could play. And I think it's so powerful of you to then learn more about it to help more people that are going through it without even knowing it. So how did you
Yes.
pull yourself out of um, out of this feeling or out of the pain or out of everything before you started writing?
Well, it took me a while. It was really difficult in those 2 years that followed, just because it was like you said, very traumatic, and I was in so much pain that like it was hard for me to get out of that cycle. But I think the real moment where I kind of like set myself free from it all is I was just like really following my intuition and messages that I was getting from my guides. And I ended up actually like something out of my control. I like think I inadvertently booked a flight to San Jose, California instead of San Jose, Costa Rica. I was supposed to go back to Costa Rica and I booked the wrong flight and I didn't realize it until I was like on the plane.
Oh no.
I was looking at everyone. I was like, this plane's going into Costa Rica, right? And they're like, we're going to California. And I was like, okay. I've booked hundreds of flights. I've flown and traveled like the majority of my adult life, but I ended up going to California instead of Costa Rica, where all of this had happened for me. And I just was like, okay, that was like my moment where I was like, okay, I'm done
Mm,
with this cycle. Like, I'm not going back there. I was supposed to go and meet my partner at the time, who I was not in a really great relationship with. And I was like, oh, I just like need to follow my intuition. Like I intuitively booked the wrong flight. I must have, you know?
yeah, yeah.
And I've been sent to the other end of the country instead of, south of where I had been living at the time. And so I just followed that. And that's literally like what lifted me up and out of that space. Like my pain like dissolved in many ways. Like I would say by like 75%, I was like rid of like the majority of the pain I had been experiencing. And I just was like, okay, this is what I'm meant to do. This is what I'm intuitively being guided to do. So my intuition's what really set me up to start writing this book.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. I have a question for you. I don't know if I know the right way to word it because it just came up
Yeah,
as you were talking, but I'm just thinking about how so many of us have, and even once we've gone through it once, we go through it again, but so many of us have, everyone actually, we're all humans, and humans like just follow patterns again and again, and we keep going back to things
absolutely.
that we know don't serve us, just out of habit and out of like, I just need to. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to know, what do you think? Of course, our intuition, but what other ways do you think we can like disrupt the pattern? Like get in there and be like, no, I am the owner of this body. I am the owner of this mind. Let's do what I want.
Mm, I think regularly disrupting your flow of life, eh, like anything that you feel like you're doing robotically without intention, like it goes back to what we were saying earlier, like intentionality is everything.
Yeah.
And if you're like something as simple as like you wake up every morning, you make your warm beverage, coffee, tea, whatever, and then you go to the exact same spot in your home to sit and like stare. And maybe you pick up your phone and you're scrolling on your phone. It's just like, what would it be to just be more conscious of like the way that you're moving and be like, no, I've been doing this every day for 5 months. I need to sit in a different place. And maybe because you sit in a different place in your home, you like look up and you see your favorite bird in the tree that you didn't even realize was like spending mornings in this tree, or something, there's like just some reality shift. And I think if we move in life in that way, just like
Yes.
making minor changes to our reality shifts, it reminds us that we have the power to do that on like a larger scale as well. It's like goes into that whole like macrocosm and microcosm thing. It's just like doing that and then adding just like it's just a little bit more magic in your life. Like even just
Yeah.
like, looking up out of the window instead of at your phone, or choosing to pack up a lunch and like eat at a park bench where you get to like look at a beautiful scenery because you can.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
why not? Like, why would you sit inside in the dark if like you could walk outside or drive like 5 minutes down the road and just sit and like stare at some
Yeah.
beautiful place? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Ooh.
I think it's just doing that type of thing.
I think that's super powerful. And I think it's so empowering to think that, oh, it just takes one little move a day. Like it just takes sitting somewhere else to have my coffee, and then maybe I decide to pick up something else other than what I'm used to. And maybe I see a bird, or maybe I see my notebook. And instead of picking up
Yeah.
my phone, I pick up my notebook and I start writing, or I see a book and I start reading. And
Yep.
our neuropath, I don't know what's happening to my words today, but our neural pathways just kind of start creating new pathways. Our neurons start creating new
Yeah.
pathways, and new parts of our brains start coming alive. And it's as simple as one little thing in one day that can ripple out into every day.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and it's so powerful to realize that there's like so much truth in that too, and like the ways that it can echo out into other facets of our life. And then when it does that, it like affects our community, and you're just like, really is like choosing to drink my coffee in a different place really gonna like offer that much profound change? But I really do believe that it can. I believe, I feel like there's
Mm.
so many people and businesses out there trying to sell like the miracle solution to all of different life's problems, but like it's really that simple. I think a
Yeah.
lot of the most profound shifts can happen in really free, like micro ways. So,
And I feel like if we are not doing the micro things and we are buying into the miracle things, it's so likely that the miracle things won't even work.
exactly. Yeah, I don't think they are. I think they're just acting like a a really interesting looking band-aid.
Huh.
You know?
I love
It's
that.
just yeah,
The
about
the
it.
prettier ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it has some glitter on it, but I don't know.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. Cool. Okay, I love this. Okay, let's go into your book. I want to know more about your book, about what is in it. What do you want to share about it? What is your favorite part of your book, and who is it for?
Yeah, so it's called Womb Witch Herbal Magic for Reproductive Health. And it does revolve around herbalism in, a couple of sections of the book, but really it's a guidebook to learn about your body from menopause to, or sorry, puberty to menopause,
Mm,
and a lot of different things in between. So I talk about different pregnancy loss experiences and pregnancy release. I talk about things that you can do holistically during pregnancy, and then different menstrual conditions that one might have. So I talk about PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, and cysts, and there's a lot of topics that I span in the book. But it's really for anyone who has a womb and anyone who doesn't have a womb, because if you don't have a womb, you came from one, and the health of all of society, every single human that you know is like based around the health of the womb space. And so I believe, if our government is going to make, or any government is going to make laws about our bodies, then we have a responsibility to know what's going on with the bodies that are being, you know, uh, dictated by the laws of a land. And also, it's just a good thing to know. I think that I really want to push forward the idea that community care is so important. And so I think that if not only, one group of people know how the body works, that's like giving life to everything and everyone, well, not
mm,
everything, but everyone that you know, then it will just make for like a more community oriented world, because then you're like, oh, my sister just gave birth, and I have the ability to know like what nourishing foods or herbs would be most supportive to her right now after
yeah.
she's given birth, you know? I mean, I think that's a really like miraculous and amazing thing. And the men in my life who have read this book have like said to me so many times like, wow, I can't believe I didn't know this. I can't believe I didn't actually know what the fallopian tubes were. Like,
Mm,
wait, I want to have kids one day, but I have no clue like what is even going on in this process at all. And so yeah, the book is for everyone, and the book hopes to just increase body literacy, which is, knowing your body in like a deep way that's not only scientific, because
yeah.
I go into the scientific aspects of things, but in like a very approachable way that doesn't get too bogged down by medical jargon. I try to like really make it like you can read it and understand it very easily. But also, I dip into the spiritual realms as well, which is, the womb witch,
Mm,
the magic part of it all. And that's probably my favorite part of the book. It's hard to pick a favorite because I feel like there's not one section that is more important than the other. I think that they're like so intertwined in such a meaningful, important way. But I really loved writing the rituals for people to like tap in deeper into their womb space and any experiences that they're having like in their womb.
yeah.
Because I haven't found any books that had done that in that space. And I think it's just so potent to feel like something you're experiencing in your body, which if you're experiencing something that is like a health condition, it can be a very lonely experience. I've had, you know, too long of a laundry list of health issues over my adult life. And I know that me turning any of those experiences into rituals that like helped myself or other people has been like such a potent thing. So that's what I've really loved to share in the book.
Oh my gosh, there is so much there, so much magic there. And I think it's so powerful because I feel like so many people recently, myself included, are talking about embodiment work and, like coming to our bodies. But when we're talking about embodiment work, I feel like we're talking more about um, like embodying the emotions that we are holding and carrying. But we don't very often go deep into, but what's actually going on in there? Like, yes, we're
Yep.
trying to release emotions that we've been holding on to for too long. Or, yes, we're trying to feel emotions that are moving through us. And yes, we're trying to alchemize and create art from it. But I think it's so powerful to know the science, like you said, like the science, but not in a
Yep.
way that's like, oh my God, this is too overwhelming. I don't want to know any of it. Rather,
Right.
the science to know, like, wait, this is actually what's going on, which is why it feels this way. Because more often than not, we hear someone be like, I have PCOS. And I'm like, and we're like, oh, what does that mean? And then we'll know a few things about what that means, but we don't really know what is that, like, what's actually going on inside. When we get pregnant, we don't know what's actually going on inside. When you lose a baby, you don't know what's actually going on inside. And I think it's so powerful, like you said, for like body literacy, for more people to know like what is actually going on, because when we know what's going on, that's how we know how to help. And I think at our core of cores, humans just want to help. Like we just want to help other people however we can, and the more we know, the more we're actually able to help. So that's incredibly powerful. Thank you for writing your book. I'm curious to know about the process and yeah, the process and how you chose what you were going to cover, and yeah, anything that you want to share about the process of writing it.
Yeah. So I started writing it when Roe v. Wade was overturned in the US in what was that, 2022? I think the summer of 2022. Yeah.
Mm.
And it felt like I was very angry. I was very upset because for many, many reasons. And I was moving from the West Coast of the US where reproductive rights were more stable back to my home state of Ohio, where the reproductive rights had like went down, and there were a lot of horror stories coming out of that area. People that had experienced ectopic pregnancies, for example, not receiving medical care because the providers weren't sure if they could legally offer medical care, which is absolutely insane because, like
Yeah,
I said, if not dealt with, it is fatal. Like
yeah,
that, no ifs, ands, or buts. So I was quite concerned about going back to Ohio. It's like if you have one ectopic pregnancy, you're much higher likelihood of having another one.
mm,
And it just I couldn't stop writing. Like I was just like I need to do anything I can, even if it's for one person, to educate others about like what is actually going on in our bodies, because it's clear that like our society does not know what's
yeah,
going on in the womb space like at all, 100%. Like they are just, not respecting women's bodies, which is, standard for the US historically. So I first went about making classes, and I had like a series of classes that I offered. And after the classes were done, I realized that I had written like 60,000 words of copy. And I was
wow,
like, well, that's a book.
yeah, mm,
I've been a writer since, I mean, I was 8 years old. I've always been writing in journals, and I've loved books, and I've always, since I was little, was like, I'm gonna be a published author.
mm,
And I have a couple of other manuscripts that I've worked on over the years, but For whatever reason, this one came forward and felt like the one that was like, okay, this is going to be the first one. But when I first wrote it and I realized I had like pretty much written a book, I just, for some reason, like this fear that I had to pursue publishing, I was too worried that like, maybe what I wrote is crap. Like it's not really that good or that helpful. I had, I don't know, 10 or 12 people in the classes that I had offered and, they really liked it, but I'm just like, I don't think someone's going to publish this. And about like a year went by and I had some life experiences and I at the end of the experience that I had in this work situation, I was just like, why am I not publishing this book? I should do this. And I had someone send me a link to the publishers that ended up publishing through.
Mm.
They were hiring for a book editor, and my friend was like, oh, maybe you'll be interested in this job. And I was like, I'm not interested in the job, but I wonder if they want to publish my book. And so I sent them my manuscript, and they were like, yeah, we're really interested in this manuscript, like very interested. But there's a lot of people who have books similar to this out in the world. Like, how can you prove that yours is different? How can you argue your case? And so I sent them an email back after I spent like a week in every bookstore in my zip code and like in piles of books being like, here, my book is very different in many different ways. And then they agreed and we did the publishing with them, or I did. So yeah. And how did I figure out what was in it? Which that was very difficult because it's such a wide range topic. There's so
Yeah.
many things to cover. And I think that I covered like an insane amount of things as is, but I went off of like what I know. So I in my own body have experienced pregnancy loss and I've worked with folks experiencing pregnancy loss of a lot of different kinds. And then also have endometriosis. And so I have worked with people with endometriosis and PCOS, cysts, a lot of different uh, menstrual conditions. And so those were the two things that I like heavily focused on outside of just general like anatomy and physiology of what's going on in the body during puberty and menopause and pregnancy and postpartum. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm curious to know, what did you respond to them? What made your book different from everything that you saw and everything that you read?
Yeah, so I found that the majority of books in this space either were uh heavily science-based, which mine is science-based as well, but and to the point where like it was for a practitioner. It wasn't
Mm.
for someone who doesn't already like have an understanding of the reproductive space. And I just found them like I found them really interesting, these books, but I found them to be way too intimidating for someone
Mm.
to approach just if they were, off the street and in Barnes and Nobles and like picking up a book.
Yeah.
And there are some that, are more like beginner friendly, but those books were heavily lacking the spiritual aspect of what I find to be really important. If you're going to do holistic health, which my book
Yeah.
is a holistic approach to womb health, like to me, that absolutely includes spirituality. They
Yes.
cannot be separated. Like, there's a lot of camps that say you can have science and spirituality and they don't really mix well, but I don't believe that. I believe that they are so much more intertwined than many people would like to believe. And so the other books that I found were like very, very heavily based in spirituality, and maybe they like dipped their toes in the anatomy and what was going on physiologically, but I just didn't find that there were rituals or like ways to really apply things to the body, like to understand the body that were both based in science and spirituality. And so
Mm.
I was just like, I don't think this book exists. And so I think that I can create it. I already pretty much have. And so they agreed. I mean, I read and then gave comparisons to like, well, maybe not in my email, I didn't give comparison to dozens of books, but like in my notes, I had, written out what was different, and that was that was what I found. So,
Yeah, ooh, I love it. Yeah, that's what I imagined too when you were sharing that, how you said that it just combines spirituality and rituals and
mhm.
the science. Like it's rare that you find science and spirituality tied together, like you said, but I also find that they're so closely linked, like they go hand in hand and they have been meant to go hand in hand, I feel like, for so long. And it's a power play to have pulled them apart. And for us to
Yep,
finally be like, wait, actually, they're too close to be that different. And I'm
exactly.
also curious to know about, how do you think like challenging womb health um, impacts our intuition, or the way that we hear the voice of our intuition?
So you're asking like how having challenging issues in the womb.
Yes.
So I actually think that it provokes our intuition if we're willing to
Mm,
listen, because
mhm,
I believe that like the womb space is, I mean, it is the center of all creation when it comes to, I mean, all of life, and not specifically when you're thinking, of course, of like just the human womb space, but like, uh, if you look at like the way a seed is born, and you like go down to it on like a more like, it's not even metaphysical, but it feels metaphysical in a way of like just how all of life is created from like that a dark space. And I feel like if there are imbalances in the space, that there are things that it's telling us spiritually about ourselves. And I don't mean this in like a uh, every single health condition is a spiritual message type of thing for everyone, because not everyone believes that, but I personally do believe that. I believe that any experience I've had that has caused my health to decline or not be balanced and a great experience to have has brought me to levels of being in touch with my intuition and spirituality in like such a deeply profound way, more so than, anything else in my life. So I
mhm,
believe that like these challenging experiences that we have, like just tap us even more deeply into this space and asks us to like really, like you said, embody ourselves in a whole different way. It's not just like embodying our emotions, but really like feeling comfortable with being in our body and being like, okay, like what messages is this telling me? Like what is my endometriosis pain? Like the fact that like my uterine lining is growing outside of my uterus. Like what does that mean? How can I like understand that in an esoteric way and apply it to my life for so many other lessons? I mean, it's not a comfortable experience, but for me, have found it's a very profound experience. So,
mhm,
yeah.
mhm, Powerful stuff. I definitely agree with you that everything that manifests in the physical body is related to our spirituality. And I love how you said it actually makes the voice louder, or it gives us no choice but to listen, I feel like, is what happens, because then it becomes so loud that we don't really have a choice. And I feel like when we don't listen, that's when our spirit is like, hey, I'm going to take the reins, which sounds like it's what happened when you booked that flight. Like your spirit
Yes.
was like, hey, it's my turn. Like you've been doing this. It's my turn to do this. And I know that you're
Uh-huh.
intuitive and I know that you care about me, but also I care about me. And so let's go to San Jose, California instead.
Yep, 100%. That's exactly what happened. So,
It's
yeah, it's
it's
funny.
amazing.
It is. Yeah.
Okay, I also think it's so powerful, again, knowing the science, just because, like you said, like when you understand the science of what's going on, it's that much easier to be like, okay, if this is literally what's happening, how am I literally doing something similar in my life? And that's why that's what's happening inside of me, right? As above, so
Yep.
below, as within, so without,
100%.
always, always. And
Always.
so everything that's happening inside of us, like we know that the world is like a world of mirrors, right? And we know that the people that we surround ourselves with like mirror us back. But I don't think we think about as often how the things we do externally also mirror our bodies internally. And that's actually the most powerful part of it, right? That like we think as within, so without, but we don't think as without, so within too.
Right. Right.
What do you think is a way we can change that narrative?
What is a way we can change that narrative? I think that learning about our bodies and learning about the cyclical patterns within. So, cycle syncing, if you're familiar, is very popular right now, and I'm all for it. That is like a trend that I completely promote because when done with balance, of course. But uh I think that learning like during our reproductive years, like what's going on with the menstrual cycle, like when you're in each phase. So
Yeah.
when you're in your menstrual phase, your follicular phase, when you're ovulating, like what foods, movements, social behaviors are more intertwined with each phase. I
Mhm.
think it helps us like when we see that there's like this internal flow within and that our like you're saying like our external behaviors, so what we're putting into our body, what we're what kind of surroundings we're choosing during each phase, if we can enact that process with like
Mhm.
intentionality, embodiment, all the things we've been talking about, then again, like I think it just echoes out like such profound shifts. It makes us demand a world that then honors the seasons of the year. We're not supposed to be on all year, but that's what our societies have dictated from us, or that's what they're demanding of us. And I think that when that becomes a trend, like cycle syncing, actually like resting when you're bleeding, or using the energy, the extra energy that you have during ovulation to do different things, then yeah, we're gonna be doing that throughout the seasons. And then, society is gonna be doing that throughout the seasons. And I think it really does start to create a shift where you're seeing more businesses that are like, we have 4-hour work weeks,
Mhm.
we have 6-week time frames where like we aren't in office at all like once a year because we respect our employees and know that life is a cyclical pattern. Each year is a cyclical pattern that we need to respect and honor. And I think that, there's people who are starting to exemplify those types of behaviors like in businesses.
Yeah.
And when that becomes popular, then more people are going to do it. And not only are they going to do it, but they're going to demand it. And I think it's because those people are like, oh, we need to actually like, we're humans in a cyclical world. Like we need to be enacting in a similar way to be
Yeah.
sustainable.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. 100%. And if anyone's listening to this podcast and they're like, what are you talking about? What phases are you talking about? I've actually done an episode maybe last year with Dana Drehos, and she talked about the different phases of our cycle. And she talked about the
awesome.
superpowers that we have at each phase of the cycle, which I found
Ooh,
amazing because usually we think, oh, my period. And
right.
uh luteal phase again, and
Uh-huh.
we're excited when we're in our follicular phase, and we're excited when we're ovulating, but when we're in our
Right.
luteal and when we're bleeding, we're like, oh my god, get me out of here. And so just
Hmm.
to think and realize like, oh, actually each phase does have a superpower, each phase does have an invitation. I feel like it allows us to go through our lives with so much more ease rather than so much more resistance. And isn't that the key for like literally everything in life? Because what does stress come from? Resistance. What does like every disease come from? Resistance. Once we start flowing, it's like we're also inviting our blood to flow, inviting like everything within us to also flow, because like you're saying, we're realizing that it's all cyclical. And like what puts us above the cycles? Literally nothing. We're earthlings. Of course, we're like we are part of the cycle. And
Right.
it's absolutely insane how far we've gotten from that, but it's absolutely beautiful how so many more women are speaking up about it and educating about it, and we're coming back to realizing, oh wait, it's actually pretty cool that we have a 28-day cycle rather than a 24-hour clock to get everything done, because women are magic. Like, we
Yeah.
have such magic within us. We have so many ideas. We have like the way we connect, the way we everything. Women are magic. And to understand that our cycles add to that magic, and to understand that our cycles actually allow us to create the magic that lives within us because there are 28 days instead of 24 hours, how much more would we actually create?
Yes. Exactly. Right. That's something I've been thinking about a lot in the past couple weeks is like uh how it would be I'm not a corporation lady at all. Like I'm not a fan of them. But I think that if we could get people at a higher level, like on the corporations, to see how much better things would be overall for like everything, if
Mm.
like they could see like how more effective life is when you actually respect those cycles. I mean, I don't know if it would help on a corporation level because they'd probably say, that things would be more effective if you did it in a masculine way. But
Mhm.
for me, I think that that is something that I would like to promote. I would like to at least, try to find ways to encourage like at least smaller businesses or medium-sized businesses to adopt the idea that like if we did respect these cycles that yeah,
Mhm.
more actually would be done, more would be created if like, there was like period leave, which I'm seeing more and more, but mostly on women founded businesses. But yeah, just being like,
Which
oh,
is
we
still
respect. Yes, it's so great. I love it. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. I would have like never fathomed that I would be like that would be a thing, right?
yeah.
Like at this point in my life, I thought it would be like much further down the road, like maybe when I was, 20 years from now. But I love to see it. I love to see it more and more that people, places of work are respecting the fact that, that is a time to be resting. You're not supposed to be in meetings for 10 hours in a day whenever you're bleeding. That's
Yes.
why. So, yeah.
Yes. And just considering that we're such sponges during our period, like being in
Yes.
a 10-hour meeting, ouch. I can imagine my womb
Yeah.
like contracting so deeply, being like, oh, too much energy, too much energy.
Way too much. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you're so intuitive and like you said, open during that time. And you like, well, I mean, exactly what you said earlier. It's just like, how much more effective would you be? Like, if you didn't have to be in a bunch of meetings and you could just actually sit back and like think about what you wanted to create, like what you wanted to blossom within like your own personal cycle, but maybe, the work that you're doing in the world or the work that you're doing with someone else, like during that time, because you're so like, yeah, porous and open and like, ha- being able to receive transmissions and messages from like the universe and your guides and spirits. So, yeah, it's super magical.
Yeah, what a powerful time actually to be bleeding. Okay, we are going to be rounding up in a little bit here, but before we round
Yeah.
up, I want to talk about one more topic, which is what it feels like to be an artist in this day and age, because I think it's freaking amazing. Like, the possibilities today are endless. And I
Yes.
feel like like so many of us have, like, we're sitting on so much art. We're just sitting on
Yes.
our art. Like you said, you wrote that book and you were like, should I publish? I mean, I've had all these poems too before I published, and I was like, should I?
Right.
Will anyone
Uh-huh.
even want to read it? But
Right.
the option to do it and the ability to do it and to champion our own arts, our own art and our own hearts, because I feel like, everything we create from our heart is art, whether it's actually art or whether it's just living our lives day to day. And we both went through it through different ways. I know you went through it with a publisher. I went through it
Yeah.
with Amazon, not my favorite way to publish, but it
Yeah,
was a way to get my book out there. And just considering that I am in the Philippines and so far away from, so much of the world, and I have so many conversations with women from the US and from the UK and from, all around the world. And so just
right.
thinking of that, I was like, okay, I guess Amazon would be a good option for my first book. But just thinking like we're able to share our work in so many ways today, but there are also cons. So I want to talk a bit about the pros and cons of being an artist in today's day and age.
Pros and well, okay, so I loved how you started this question because it was and how you ended as well. But just saying and like focusing on the point that like there's so many ways right now for us to express our art, and it is amazing. It's incredible the resources that we have, like the ability to, you know, go online and look up anything, read any forum about people who have been exactly where you've been, like at any point in the stage, right, of anything that you want to explore. You want to start sketching, I don't know, landscapes. There's someone, not even someone, there's thousands, maybe even millions of someones who have done that and are talking about it on the internet. And it's really incredible. I mean, you can watch YouTube videos, right, to like learn different things or take courses and classes that will help you hone your poetry skills or, you know, your videography skills. It's amazing. And I think, you know, I feel so grateful that I'm alive right now in this time, like in this body. And I don't think there's any mistake as to like why I decided to come to Earth right now. Uh, I would say the cons, something that I feel like I've personally been bogged down by in the past, and things that I see other people talking about is like the fact that there is so much. There are so many people creating and putting things out there, and uh, it seeming like intimidating, or like you don't even almost know where to start sometimes if you want to move past the point of like, you know, having some sketches hidden in like a notebook of yours, like under a pillow somewhere, or if you like
Yeah.
are writing things and you're just keeping them in your laptop like I have for literal decades. You're like, you know, I think that has something to do with like perfectionism and the way that people on social media and the internet are so sometimes volatile and not the nicest, you know, you're like,
Yes.
what are people gonna say if I like expose my work? Like it's like a fear of you know, criticism or people, you know, having their unsolicited opinions on their keyboard. And I think that can cause some fear, some other fears that can be caused are by seeing other people doing what you want to do, which can
Mm.
either be really inspiring or it can feel like intimidating, like, oh, if they're kind of struggling to do this and they are famous or like well known or like an influencer or whatever, then how could I do it? You know,
Yeah.
no one knows my name and et cetera, et cetera. So I think that can be intimidating, but something that I am feeling really called to do after having this experience with publishing my book is talking more about the realities of publishing. And I know you recently had an episode that I listened to about how you published your book, and I loved that. I thought it was great and super informative. And I think, you know, more artists should be more outright about their experience when it comes to like bringing a body of work to this plane of existence and like
Mm.
beyond like their own personal realm, which, you know, to me, you are an artist if you are still the only one who's ever seen your art, or if like your grandma is the only one who's seen your art. Like you are 100% an artist. Even if you're only creating things in your mind, to me, that very much makes you an artist. I mean, we're all creatives. I truly, truly believe and know for a fact we are all artists, no matter what
Yes.
it looks like. We just are. We like to live is to be creation, moving and breathing and acting
Yes.
as art, you know? Um, but Yeah, I think more transparency is going to create more artists and reminding people that, we're a very small part of the population if we're people who get to only focus on our art. I'm not personally at the point where I am just surviving off of my book sales by any means. And, I have a way to go until I get to that point. I hope someday that's like my goal is to be able to pay my mortgage payment or my future mortgage payment with my book sales.
Mhm.
But I am in a reality that I don't actually like need that to be my reality. Like I'm finally to that place where I'm just like, no, I'm creating this because I need to and because it feels good and it adds more magic to my life and it adds more magic to the world. And I don't need it to be like resulting in fame and fortune and glory. And it would be great if it could result in people being helped by what I'm offering them. Like that's my main goal. And if then that results in monetary success, like I wouldn't mind that, but
Yeah.
that's not ultimately like my goal. And I think that like shifting the collective from uh thinking that you've made it if you're making like an insane amount of monetary success off of your art like needs to shift. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, yes. So 100% yes. I'm thinking about Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic and how she
Mhm.
says like don't put pressure on your art to be your main like source of income because the second you do that, you're stifling your art. And your
Yep.
art all of a sudden is like, oh, I don't really want to come out because then it's like we're controlling the way it comes out, where art is not something that we can control, right? Our souls are not things that we can control. Our souls are so expansive and so creative in their own right, and just by putting something like holding something, putting it down on paper, like that is magic and that is art. And I lost my train of thought because I'm so passionate about this, but I absolutely love what you said about sharing our experiences, because it's never going to look the same for two people ever, no matter if it's the same words, the same book, the same whatever. It's never going to look the same because we all have our own processes, we all have our own ways that we channel information, we all have our own ways that we're able to transmit information. Some people transmit them better talking, some people transmit them better writing, and none is better than the other. And so the more of us that talk about this, the more people are like, oh, okay, maybe I can do it too, because they were able to do it that way. And the most interesting thing is, like, even the most accomplished people still go through the same mind games because they're still human. We're all still human. And so we all still have these emotions that are tricking us, being like, who are you to think that you know everything about this topic? But the truth of the matter is, we don't need to know everything about the topic because we're not sharing to look like we are know-it-alls. We are sharing to add magic to the world. And when you're sharing to add magic to the world, like your work is going to add magic. There's no other way. Like there's no other way.
Yes. I know. I'm like, I want to clap that. Yes. That's exactly how I feel. 100%. So, yeah.
Hmm. Okay, I we will round up now. I don't know why though. The word womb of the earth, the words womb of the earth keep coming up in my mind. So, or like the earth's womb. What do you think of when you hear that? The earth's womb.
So I love that. That's a meditation that I do in a couple of the workshops that I offer, and it ties into that concept. I like to remind people that there's such deep power in showing reverence and gratitude for the earth that you live on, like everywhere that you are, just being like in gratitude, like, wow, this earth is like not only keeping me safe and stable, but it's, providing me food and clean water, hopefully, and all of these nourishing, incredible things. Like the womb of the earth, it's what actually like keeping the wombs of humans healthy. There's no separation at all from them. They are they are linked so deeply. And I like to lead people in a meditation of, you know, feeling gratitude for their first home inside of, their mother's womb, but then also like that they were inside of their mother's womb because of the womb of the earth, and then showing that link again. It's just that's actually like, it's interesting you're hearing that, because that's where I'm really feeling my work like go towards. I feel like I'm moving more towards focusing on actual like earth-based reverence, versus like I was very deep in herbalism, and that was like my main focus, and I love herbalism and I will always be a practicing herbalist, but I feel more of a sense of like urgency or like a calling to focus on the womb of the earth. So I love that you said that and pointed that out. So
As a double Virgo, I am sure that is going to be such beautiful medicine that you share with the world. And also, you were cutting off while you were saying that, which is how we know that it's that much more powerful because the energy was so big that it was like cutting through the internet.
that's fun. I love it.
It's so beautiful. That sounds like such a beautiful meditation. And I think it is just magic and needed, and like our hearts are craving it, this reconnect with the earth and with realizing like just how much the earth is giving us by just holding us up, and how much gratitude we must give the earth in whatever way we can. Like to me, it's a lot about owning our emotions and owning our shit so that we're not projecting it to other people but also to the earth, because when we're owning who we are and what we are, it's like, again, embodied, it's inside our body. So when we're stepping on the earth, our step is that much lighter as compared to if we're stepping on the earth with anger, like with each step more and more anger, like the earth is feeling that anger, she feels. And so yeah, I think it's really powerful. Okay, I have two last questions for you. My first question is, what do you feel like makes you a artist? And my second question is, if people want to work with you, or if they want to find your book, or if they want to, work with you in any way, how can they and where can they find you?
Okay. So the first question, what makes me a artist? Let's see. I think that the way that I can see, we keep talking about magic, but it's true. There's so much magic. But the way that I can see like the deep, profound magic in like the simplest of things really pulls me to my heart. Like I know at any moment, no matter where I am in the world, that if I can even if I'm in a city that seems like there's no quote nature, like I can find it. I can almost always walk outside and find like either a plant, a weed I know growing up out of a crack and just like seeing its resiliency. And it helps me remember like everything that I know, even if I get lost in my human experience and I'm not remembering some of my core beliefs. I can go outside and I feel like I can just, see a weed or see a blade of grass and like get real close and see all of the life happening like in the grass blades. And I think it just like shifts me back into that place where like I am like leading from my heart and wanting to create from that place, even if I'm not like intentionally creating art, but I'm like trying to live out that belief and thought from my heart. So, yeah. And then ways that people can find me on Instagram and Substack, I can be found at Dandelion Dazed, and that's Dazed. And then angelicamerritt.com is my website. I do consultations and workshops. And yeah, those are the best places to find me.
Amazing. Thank you. I love how you explained what makes you a artist. So beautiful to just lose ourselves in plants and weeds and just like being outdoor. I have a Taurus moon, so I'm totally feeling you
Oh,
with everything that you're saying. And a lot of my
yeah.
poetry comes from like nature and being out in nature and observing like flowers and plants. So totally right there with you. And it's just how nature has this ability to just reconnect us with our own human nature no matter how we're feeling, is just, it's underrated, to be honest.
100% and free.
And free. Yes, the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
Angelica, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This has been such an informative episode, and I cannot wait to get my hands on your book. Through this conversation, I'm like, yes, I need it. I need it. I need it. So I am so excited to read it. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your art with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This was a wonderful conversation, so thank you.